Oh, I feel for my brother. Feel for my brother. The street life used to be on. Straight up hustling till the break of dawn. Taught me how to do wrong right. Everything inside. But somehow
All
things
right,
started
so
to change. Try to get a straight
hello everyone.
What's
I
up,
know
folks?
I might look like I'm in a different place today, and that is a fact. See, because of because of the current political climate, I thought it might be good to just get away for maybe a week or so, just until everything cools off. So I'm at an undisclosed location this week.
First of all, you're assuming that things will cool off. I'm pretty sure it's going to be escalating thoroughly and thusly for the next 4 years, or 365 times 4 plus however many leap years.
Yeah, so just this is not nothing has been said. This is purely for my own peace of mind. That's it. And but listen, I'm not gonna listen. Nothing.
Meanwhile, I'm still broadcasting from the same location that I have been. My location is all out in the world. My ass is completely out in the open. So I feel like I'm slacking.
Let me just say that if things were to happen, I think West Philly would probably be the last place anybody would try to start any trouble. Okay.
Yeah. That or North Philly, Southside Chicago, Crenshaw.
But on this podcast, let's not let's. I know things out there. People are anxious, but what this podcast is about is making people feel good, feel happy,
Let's make
and
people feel
it's
good.
about good, feeling happy, and shitting on Marvel and DC. So in that spirit,
Which makes us feel good. More specifically, you.
I would like to discuss a video that I've seen on the YouTubes not too long ago. Our producer will put a link to it in the details of the podcast, a link to the video. But the video is basically, the title of it is, Kid, do you remember the title of that video? I'm drawing a blank.
So it was an interesting title, and it was one that I was kind of excited to do the homework on for this. It just says what no one wants to admit about the comic book sales, and it's the video essay of a comic book from the 90s called Bone, written by, illustrated by, drawn by Jeff Smith.
Jeff Smith.
Real quick, in all your times at Comic-Con, have you met Jeff Smith, come across Jeff Smith?
I don't think I met him, but I've definitely seen him there. He's definitely been on a panel.
Shout out Jeff Smith. Come on the podcast whenever you like.
I would like to point out that Jeff Smith, along with Kevin Eastman and Laird and maybe Kirkman, although maybe not Kirkman, definitely Jeff Smith and Eastman and Laird, the most successful indie comics creators of all time.
You don't put McFarlane in that list?
See, that was a studio, so he did have resources. He had investors. He had all this stuff. As far as like starting something in a garage by yourself, it's Bone and it's Turtles.
And then it will soon to be whenever the hell we get around to writing a comic book. But I digress.
One would hope, yes.
So go ahead. Why don't we do the setup and just kind of like explain the video itself? For those of you that don't know, back in the early mid 90s, Jeff Smith, along with his wife, developed a cartoon called Bone. His wife did more of the business side. He did all the artistry. And as the video stated, there was more of an edginess in comic books in the 90s. And Bone was one of those things where it just wasn't edgy. It was drawn super clean, super simple, and it just had a really like novel concept. It wasn't trying to shove too much down somebody's throat. It was a cute little comic, and in the video,
well, I mean, saying it's a cute little comic is a little bit reductive. I mean, it has some depth to it.
It's kind of disrespectful too, and I apologize.
But basically, it was his own basically his idea to take a cartoon character, give them this epic quest or whatever. And it was fun, and it was poignant, and it was funny, and just a really well made comic,
In the video, I don't want to spoil too much because I would really encourage our listeners to read or listen to the video essay. But Jeff Smith had he had tried to do just like comic strips for newspapers, but what he wanted to do wasn't exactly in line with what the newspapers wanted. So he said, "Screw it! I'm just gonna do my own thing." Inevitably, he enrolled at Ohio State University and just started doing his own comic strip, and it just kind of went from there. It just kind of ballooned, and I mean, that's a testament to him, just doing what he wants.
But long story short, he tries to pitch this idea to tons of publishers. Nobody wants to bite. Nobody really gets the concept. They want to push it as strictly a children's book. He says it's not a children's book. So he's getting nowhere with this. And then he's like, okay, well, I'm going to have to shelve this. Then the 80s happened. Sorry.
We're sorry.
These happen. Dark Knight Returns comes out. Watchmen comes out. There's renewed focus on number one, the idea of the graphic novel as opposed to the single issue comic book. And then Jeff Smith is like, hey, maybe I can make Bone work as like a long form graphic novel. And that is where Bone is born. He makes a bunch of issues, makes a bunch of graphic novels, puts it out on his own. It gets picked up slowly but surely, builds an audience. And then comes to success. Then Teebs and KidPhoenix start talking about it.
I have a question for you since we just leapt right into the graphic novel. As an artist, as a writer, as a reader, lover, purveyor of fine comic books, as am I, do you prefer the single issue comic or do you prefer the graphic novel?
I much prefer the graphic novel just because I like to get a whole story. One of the things that we can talk about on this podcast is how I think the monthly single issue model is a broken model and kind of can't be sustained in today's day and age.
I think I prefer the graphic novel as well, just because I like the idea. Call me, old man yelling cloud, but like I like the idea of a beginning, middle, end, right? Here's 20 or 30 bucks. This is my graphic novel. I got the whole thing. I don't have to keep waiting and like throwing down like $5 after $6 after $8 after whatever just to get the complete story. And by and large, some of the single issue stuff is irrelevant to the overall story. It just feels like, you're playing Red Dead Redemption and you're just trying to do the main plot, but then you have to go off and like purchase all this DLC side quest.
Exactly. Now, to continue the story of Bone, what happens is, somewhere around the 2000s, Scholastic decides they want to get into the comic book business, but they don't really have a comic book to start their comic book imprint with. They find Bone, actually librarians.
Right.
Who a lot of comic book artists have been selling Bone in large quantities of Bone to librarians. And it's librarians that tell Scholastic, hey, people love this series. You should take a look at this. Then Scholastic acquires Bone, oddly enough, to put as a children's book. However, since Scholastic already has Harry Potter, which is technically children's, but YA, and Bone gets to sit next to that on store shelves in bookstores, and that's what's very important. In bookstores.
Bookstores, not comic book shops.
Bone gets to be successful, and there from Bone, you get a slew of other kind of young adultish comics, the most successful of which is Dogman, with the Dogman movie on the horizon.
Right on the way, too.
And so basically this happens while Marvel and DC are laser focused on a single audience of devoted readers that are older, and just trying to resell stuff to this audience over and over and over and over again, rather than trying to cultivate a new audience as Scholastic did and with the title Bone.
Can I ask a question real quick, since we got to that? So, what in your eye is the difference between what Marvel and DC did with, they were trying to just serve a certain fan base that had grown up with them since like the 50s and 60s, but like Bone was not without its dedicated fan base.
That's true.
So it's like, I mean, I don't want to say it's like hypocritical or anything like that, but Bone was speaking to a dedicated specific fan base from the Knees. So I'm wondering what the difference is there between in the duality there. Again, fit that word right. It's my word of the month. I don't know what it is.
A duality, nice. Sorry, say that one more time.
What do you feel is the difference between like Marvel saying, "Oh, we want to stick to this our fan base," but then Bone basically doing the same thing and not like really cultivating anything new?
Well, Bone actually had appeal to several audiences.
Okay.
It was built with that in mind. Marvel and DC have tried to cater to different audiences, but because of the model, the way that some of their stuff is sold, they've not had a lot of success. The bottom line is stuff like the Scholastic stuff and stuff like manga is where kids are. It's in Target, It's in Walmart, it's in Barnes and Noble. A kid is not going to wake up one day and be like, I'm going to go to the comic shop today. Like it's not very likely. But if they're at Target anyway and they see something, it's much more likely they're going to pick up that than
forget even Target and Walmart. Like manga, like you'll find that in like most school libraries. They'll carry it.
I mean, a lot of libraries have everything. They have Marvel and DC stuff in school libraries as well.
I just found that really interesting. And like we said this on the podcast before, like when Marvel and DC try to try to appeal to a different audience or a different age group or a different culture, it's essentially just like repackaging older characters, like the Sam Wilson Captain America, or but you know what I mean, just like repackaging everything, and it just comes off as pandering, and it doesn't work because you get the older generations that are just like, oh no, my Captain America is always white, my Superboy is always heterosexual. It's like you're always going to get that pushback, and these different cultures, these different facets of human society, like they don't really get their chance to shine because they're bogged down from these prior generations who just want to keep the status quo.
I don't think that's necessarily the issue, because the titles that we're talking about that are manga is fantastically not diverse. Fantastically.
Hilariously not diverse.
That doesn't seem to be a problem for anybody. The problem is, yes, there's an issue with trying to change characters who are tried and true, but Spider-Man is going to appeal to everybody. Like there's certain ones that are
there's certain characters that are universal.
Just going to work. Certain characters are just going to work. Superman, Batman, Spider-Man. You're not going to have a problem selling anything with any of those guys on it, right?
Right.
It's when you get deeper into the lineup. It's
when you get into the nooks and crannies.
Like, selling a Flash book might be a hard time. You might have a hard time doing that.
Might be a hard sell.
Famously, you cannot sell Wonder Woman. It is a tough sell.
Really? I was not aware of that. So, like, Wonder Woman, Batgirl, Batwoman, just no?
I'm not saying no. I'm just saying they traditionally don't sell as well as you would think. I mean, they call Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman the big three, but they are... But if you look at the sales numbers, there's clearly a big one, a big, like, two, and then Wonder Woman is out there somewhere. So
yeah, like Batman and Superman are S tier, and then Wonder Woman is like A tier, as opposed just because of like history. Like you said, she's one of the original big three, and then Aquaman is like F tier, whatever. But
yeah,
that's it. And you've seen Marvel and DC like comics, like recently they've tried to repackage and create new number ones or new universes that we've talked about. Like New 52 came out, and then you were telling me about this thing called Absolute Batman before we started this recording, and I'm just like, how many, just what's wrong with just straight Batman like it is? I understand that every artist has and wants to put their own spin on it, but I'm just gonna get angry about the logo, but like the Batman logo is the Batman logo. Like, why are we fucking with it?
Yeah, and again, anytime it seems like nobody has a problem with any of these characters when they make them more aggressive and like more badass than they were before, right? Like nobody has a problem with absolute Batman being the way he is, but like if Batman is black, everybody loses their shit. So that's the thing. Then that's going to lead me to my next point. Like Marvel and DC have steered so hard away from, kid stuff, like fantastical storytelling. Like, okay, in the DCU, okay, you're a Green Lantern head, yes?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
Tried and true.
Okay. So Alan Scott.
Yes.
Would you mind telling the good people out, Alan Scott's the original Green Lantern, the original Green Lantern. Would you mind telling the good people out there what Alan Scott's weakness is?
Alan Scott's weakness is the same weakness as everybody in the Green Lantern Corps, and you like to boil it down to something as simple as the color yellow.
No, wait a minute. No. Hold on. Alan Scott specifically is weak against wood.
Right. I'm sorry.
Wood.
Yeah.
Okay. He's got fantastical cosmic powers, but you can beat this guy with a Louisville Slugger. Okay.
With a 2x4. I always, but when back in those, it was hard to, find interesting things and interesting quirks back in the, 1940s.
The regular Green Lantern is famously weak to the color yellow.
Not the color yellow.
If you want to get away with some crimes in Coast City, it's Coast City, right?
It is Coast City.
If you want to get away with some crimes in Coast City, just wear a raincoat like Paddington. You'll be fine. You'll be perfectly fine. Commit all the crimes.
The Green Lantern Corps is not afraid of the color yellow. They are afraid of the ring and Sinestro's powers associated with the color yellow. We've had this discussion before.
Listen. This is part of the whole thing. Okay? Yes, being weak to yellow is silly.
It's not.
But silliness is a part of these characters. And silliness is what keeps these characters in a realm where children can understand them and keeps the storytelling from getting too hardcore and too far away from what a large group of people will be able to digest. Superman is weak against green radioactive rocks. Not just the green ones. Let's not even get into all the other colors of kryptonite that do all kinds of funky stuff.
The official term is kryptonite.
Superman is. That's what Superman is.
He's weak against chunks of radioactive rock that came from his home planet. Like, you are simplifying some of these weaknesses way too much.
They are simple, though. Listen.
Yeah.
If you tell Musa, if you tell the man cub, hey, Superman is weak to kryptonite, he's gonna be like, what? What's even that?
Yeah.
But
okay.
If you tell him rocks, shiny rocks, he's gonna get it.
I also think that's why. Is it possible that, like, Spider-Man is the most fun superhero for somebody under the age of, like, 8? Because all he does is just, like, he's just swinging around on webs, looks like he's flying, he's doing all kinds of gymnastics, running around, doing crazy stuff. webbing people up and just like having a fun old time.
I think so. Quick side note.
Okay.
What does Spider-Man do in the desert? Like what's the move? Where are you going? How does he get around? What's the modus operandi there?
Pray to God that an automobile comes by at some point.
If Spider-Man's in the desert, he's as after as you or I.
So wait, you're telling me the Spider-Man can't like attach him now? There's a weight problem. He couldn't attach himself to like vultures in the sky and just kind of do that. Like, all right, we're thinking about this too hard. There's got to be like mountains or something. But I think where kids get into trouble a lot of times, and this is why I have steered towards just like re-images of stuff that I liked as a kid. I love the IDW run of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I have since they kind of like took over. And then when I want to do like some of the more mature stuff, like The Last Ronin, I'll say it again. The Last Ronin is fucking fantastic, and I hope the movie is equally fantastic.
But see, here's the thing, and I'm reading Last Ronin now.
Good.
The reason Turtles has been able, see, I don't know though, because the reason that Turtles has been able to sustain and maintain over the decades is again, simple concept that is easily digested. And because of the easiness and the silliness of it, the silliness prevents it from going into too many avenues that would exclude children.
But then with the Last Ronin
is, yeah.
But then with The Last Ronin, you get that edginess that maybe like an older adult would. That Turtles provides a little something for everybody. Is basically my point.
That's okay. I get what you're saying, and that's fine. And if you want to think about, but Turtles going forward in the future should not all be dark and edgy. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not.
Even though that's the way it started. It kind of evolved into something else, which I think is what people want from it. And every now and then, okay, fine, the story will come around and try to take it back to its edgy roots, but still, like,
you get back to the bread and butter.
Right, but the enduring legacy of this franchise is its ability to morph itself and still stay relevant with a core audience of like kids.
That just brings me to another fine point that was made in the video where it's just like manga like basically has outsold Marvel and DC for like years, decades even at this point. I don't know what they're doing in their storytelling to like make it more interesting to kids. That is, I don't want to say all of manga is like simplified, but I want to say the vast majority of it is simple stories, simple concepts, not overly like obstructed by it. It's not getting in its own way.
The thing about manga is the good guys look like good guys, the bad guys look like bad guys. The ambiguous guys are ambiguous and look like halfway good, halfway bad guys. It's really easy to see where somebody is on the spectrum of goodness just by their character design. That's one of the things that manga has going for it. Like you can pick up, it's a plus and a minus in my opinion, but you can pick up any manga, open it up, see a dude that looks a certain way and be like, oh, this guy's no good. And like, there you go. Like you're probably going to be right.
Like even certain hairstyles, like you can look in and just like, all right, yep, that's my bad guy.
Right. So I think, yeah, manga does offer a simplicity of storytelling. Not to say that there aren't some manga that do have rich and get into, you know, really interesting territory. I'm just saying that for the most part, the simplistic design is geared really towards helping you read it, even if you can't. Like, there are very few mangas that you're going to open up where you're going to have trouble following the paneling. Do you know what I'm saying?
It's very easy to pick up and go.
They don't break panels a lot. They make sure that you are able to read it and understand it. And I think that's another thing that manga has going for it. Plus the size, plus the price, plus the fact that if you want to read all of If you want to read all of Naruto, you go in there and like, here's Naruto number 1 to Naruto number, I don't know, 36, all in a row,
Yeah,
and
it's
you just
all
read them.
there. Right.
You
You
just read them.
don't have to constantly wait until the next month's issue. Like we're at the point now where like
But not even that. Not even that. It's not like, oh, I want to start Naruto. I'll start with Volume 1. Not like, I want to start with Spider-Man. Well, you actually need to start with Amazing number 2. Something like, no. Like, I can't.
it's just like I just want to start with 1. Everything starts with the number 1. I'll just go from there. It's kind of why like I've thought about it, because it's always stuff that people talk about. I'm just like, okay, should I, dive into One Piece? And like I've thought about it just because it seems like a simple enough concept, and I know I can just pick up and go from number 1, and I don't have to know a whole lot of like previous backstory from like comics or whatever from like the 1970s. I'm like, all right, One Piece number 1. Here's where I start, and then if I like it, I keep going, and then if I get bored with it, I can just stop and just pick it right back up. So let's bring this home. What's the plan then for like Marvel and DC comics to kind of get back to being maybe appreciate is the wrong word, but get back to the golden age where people went in and was just like, oh, there's a new X-Men comic or a new Spider-Man comic or whatever. I'm gonna pick it up. Instead, you just keep getting these like weird reimaginings, and like we said with the Ultimate Batman, Absolute Batman, like it's good. I will go to Brave New World tomorrow, my particular comic shop of choice, and just like thumb through it. But like if I pick that one up, I'm just like, I have the benefit of having lineage of Batman in my dome. Not everybody has that. So like what's the move here?
The move is what the move has always been. You have one title that's ongoing that goes to continuity all the way back to 1930 whatever if you want. You have another title where Batman just punches the Joker, and like that's it. You
That's
just
it.
run those two. Yeah, like this in this month, Batman punches the Joker. Next month, Batman punches Riddler. Next month, like just simple
Batman MM.
storytelling, simple, easy storytelling.
So I like this. Let's do this. Since we talked about the Turtles model, I don't think there's anything wrong. I don't think anybody would complain if there was like the whole like you said, there's one main book, just Batman, period, end of story, and it just follows the continuity of the hero back before like 1950, and it just stays on that canon. Every once in a while, you get these like one-offs, for example, like The Last Ronin, where you get these like little stories, and I think that's where I think that's where we need to be, where it's just like, okay, we have the lineage of the Batman, but then we also have Frank Miller's Dark Knight Returns, and we have the Killing Joke, and we have whatever you want to call it. But the crux will always be the main timeline. And then you can splinter off into these alternate realities for like one-offs.
Like, look, I don't want to get into what should be in continuity and what should not be in continuity. I just think that you should be able to take a kid into any comic book store, Target, wherever, whatever, and there should be a Batman title that you can pick up, hand to them, and say, "Here, read this," and they can read it and they'll have a good time. That's it. That there should always be that title.
We just miss the good old days, don't we?
It's not even about the good old days, because what I'm talking about didn't even happen in the good old days.
True.
But it should be that if these other companies want to grow, that's the way it should be. And now let's talk about something else. Let's talk about, we're doing a lot of talking about bookstores and comic shops, and these are not the places where people consume media these days. It's
Right.
really not. If you really want to think about being forward and getting out in front of something and like seeing a wave like Jeff Smith did and trying to catch it, I think the next step is going to have to be like we've tried the comics on the web. It's not
the
great.
same.
It's not a great experience.
Have you had Marvel Unlimited? Have you tried that before?
It's not great. But see, here's what I think is great. And this is the way I think we're going to have to be if we're going to be storytellers going forward. We're going to have to go back to the old-fashioned 3-panel, 4-panel strip model, maybe even 10 panels, sticking that on Instagram or some platform where you can look at them individually and get like brief nuggets
That's
of
a good idea.
there are people that do this, and then once you have those nuggets can then be spun out into graphic novels, into animations, into other things, other ways for people to find them and interact with them.
And I'm curious to see if you have the same reaction that I do sometimes, where like I'll pick up a comic book, like I'll start to thumb through it, and quite simply, there's just way too much going on the fucking page, and it just takes me out of it. It takes me out of the experience. Maybe that's just me personally.
That is what printed comics have to do. That is a certain level of art that is expected from that audience. And you can't deviate too much from that, otherwise they are not going to buy you. See, the problem with being a comic artist today is so much of the marketplace is dominated by the tastes of a select few who do spend all the money. So you have to cater to those tastes. And sometimes it can be very restricting because not everybody wants to draw like a Jim Lee or or DC house style. Not everybody, number one, is capable of doing that. Right. Number two, is capable of doing that at the level where you can maintain profitability. Definitely not. And thirdly, as you said, it's not necessarily something that you need for the storytelling. Like sure, it's great if you can draw every ab on Batman, but again, to get back to Bone sells just fine and has no abs. That's all I'm saying.
I do think you're onto something though with your like Instagram idea, because right now
it's not my idea, but
the idea that you posed on the podcast, so I'm calling it yours. On Instagram, you can post 10 photos at a time. And sure, there's going to be like some size limitations. People are going to have to use their phones to like zoom in, zoom out for certain things. But I kind of like that idea, using Instagram as just like a little 10-page comic book. Like you have the front cover, you have 8 pages, you have the back cover. Good, you're done. Wait for the next one.
But not even pages. They have to be panels. And the thing about them is they have to be daily, or at the very least every other day. That's the key.
Really?
Yes.
You couldn't get away with like weekly or anything like that.
Weekly is a possibility, but I think as fast as social media moves, you have to be daily.
I'm also thinking about like the workflow of the artist doing that. Like daily's hard. Like that's full-time job. You're always working.
But again, if you think about if you're doing a 4-panel strip, a comic book page is 6 panels, maybe 8 panels, maybe 9 panels. So if you do a 9-panel page, that's 3 days worth of content right there.
Oh, good point.
You have to, as a storyteller, you just have to be able to break the storytelling down into these tiny chunks that will work. And that is the challenge.
So should we look for the next run of like horrorgasm stuff on Instagram?
I'm trying to figure out a way to take some of the stuff that I've already done, and I have a story or two that could work in this format that I could maybe chunk out onto Instagram or something like that. I'm going to be giving that a shot in the near future. Also, if we're wrapping this up, I have another announcement. I know I've said this in the past. I promise I'm going to try to be more. We're going to try to be more consistent with streaming this year.
Yeah. How many times have you said that in season 4?
But I plan to be streaming every Saturday at 10:30, 11 a.m. Pacific. Starting this weekend, starting Saturday, I'll be playing the remastered The Thing the video game, which just came out at the end of 2024. I'll be playing The Thing on stream starting this Saturday.
Like John Carpenter's The Thing?
John Carpenter's The Thing. Maybe we might do more than I might do more than one time a week, but definitely at least the Saturday. If you can come on, hang out, it'll be awesome. We'll watch The Thing. You can watch me flail around and like try to smack McCready around with a flamethrower.
Links for all of that will be in the description, as well as all of the other fine ways you can find us on social media. Meta, Instagram, X, Blue Sky, which we're both on, TikTok, which is alive and well, apparently, thank God. Next week, we're working out the details, but this has to come, this has to happen, because Section 31 comes out on Friday. So we got to get with the Rebinge It boys, the Rebinge It boy and girl, and get a deep dive on Section 31 when it's all said and done over here. Teebs clearly can't wait.
Yeah, I said I would do this.
You said you would do this.
And I've looked at trailers, and I've not liked what I've seen, but
Okay.
We're gonna
power through it. Power through it. That's it. That's the podcast. Until next week, we're going to get out of here. Section 31 with Rebinge It. Look for that. We're out of here.